I am a little ghost in charge of sleep paralysis. In order to earn a living, I keep pressing on a domineering CEO every day. There's no other reason. It's just that the CEO goes to bed early. Later. Because I completed my tasks well. I didn't have to go to work every day. I went less often. As a result, one day, the CEO angrily caught me and questioned, "Why haven't you come? Do you have someone else? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. The customer I selected today is still playing with his mobile phone and goes to bed later than a ghost." I yawned 3 times. I felt a little frustrated. If I can't complete the task, I will be hungry again. I can't remember how I died. After death, I found a job that can barely make a living. I became a little ghost in charge of sleep paralysis. I just thought I could earn a living. But now people go to bed later, and later one by one, making it difficult for me to carry out my business. Just when I was so hungry that I was dizzy, I stumbled into a room in a daze. The person inside was sleeping soundly. I was delighted and quietly pressed on him. Although he couldn't hear me, I still apologized in a low voice. "I'll just press for a while. Just for a while. I'm so hungry." I closed my eyes and touched randomly with my hand. His figure is quite good. So I fell asleep satisfied. But I didn't see that the person who was sleeping soundly had quietly opened his eyes. The next day, I woke up in that person's arms. My face suddenly turned completely red. I can't remember much about what happened before I died. But I still know that I am a single person who has never been in love. After working for so long after death, this is the first time such an accident has happened. Probably because I was too hungry for too long and didn't wake up in time. As soon as I got up, that person woke up. He rubbed his head and looked a little tired. I felt a little guilty. It should be my fault. But I can't get out of this place. There are not many customers to choose from. So I had to find him. After having a full meal last night, my mood became good again. I observed the person in front of me with great interest. He is very efficient. In a short time, he not only finished his morning exercise, but also made a simple breakfast for himself. I nodded approvingly. His schedule is regular and healthy. Very good. I like it. Relying on the fact that he can't see me, I didn't restrain my gaze at all. As soon as he took out his clothes to change and glanced in my direction, he then turned and entered the bathroom. That glance made my heart skip a beat. I almost thought he could see me. After all, I am an unmarried girl. I also want to save face. It's impossible to chase after him to the bathroom to watch him change clothes. Just when I thought it was going to be another boring day, he started working from home. I was a little surprised, but more happy. Although he can't see me, I can see him. So I am considered to have someone to accompany me. Peter. I looked at the username on the computer screen and read it softly. This name is quite nice. I savored it in my heart. I didn't notice that Peter's hand paused for a moment when he was entering the password. Peter is very busy. He is at home all day. There are non-stop meetings and phone calls. I sat on the chair and stared at him intently. Today's sunshine is good. His ears are a little red from the sun. The sunlight shines in through the bright window. Peter is immersed in it, and seems to be glowing. I actually taste a hint of holiness. But slowly, I started to get a little bored. So I touched things here and there in the room. I can't find a book on the bookshelf that I can understand. Even a children's book would be fine. I frowned and looked at the books on the bookshelf. A little dissatisfied. Of course, no one answered me. My gaze fell on the table again. If there were a bunch of sunflowers, the room would be much more lively. Peter still didn't notice anything and was concentrating on his work. Like playing a prank. I suddenly leaned close to Peter's neck to watch his video conference. Wow. I can't understand a single word. You are really amazing. I sincerely praised. Then I turned my head and saw Peter's red ears. Is it very hot? I frowned and murmured. I kind of wanted to draw the curtain for him. Peter suddenly coughed lightly and picked up his water cup to drink. I touched my stomach and sighed. Nowadays, it's not easy to be a domineering CEO. There is no lunch break. I'm hungry. As soon as I finished complaining, Peter announced the end of the meeting. He stretched and went back to the bedroom. I happily followed behind him. When Peter changed his clothes and lay down, I couldn't wait to pounce on him. I took a deep breath at his neck like smelling a cat and sighed contentedly. This is really my most satisfied customer. No, not a customer. It should be said that he is my provider. I fell asleep deeply in Peter's arms. When I woke up, I was nestled in Peter's arms. As the saying goes, familiarity breeds comfort. I calmly withdrew from his arms. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Peter opened the door sleepily. I followed to watch the excitement. As soon as the door opened, a large bunch of sunflowers instantly blocked my sight. I was stunned on the spot and didn't speak for a long time. Peter held the flowers and instructed the staff, who delivered the books, to put the newly bought storybooks and novels on the bookshelf. Looking at the novels and picture books that were abruptly inserted on the bookshelf full of financial magazines, my heart pounded wildly. A possibility made me so excited that I wanted to verify it immediately. When the room was quiet again, I ran in front of Peter and asked in a low voice, "Can you see me?" I thought I would get a response. Unexpectedly, Peter directly ignored me and turned to go to the kitchen. Huge disappointment enveloped me. Could it be that I was wrong? So is all this just a coincidence? I was reluctant to give up after finally seeing a glimmer of hope. I chased after him to the kitchen. "Peter, if you ignore me, then I'll kiss you." I thoughtlessly uttered a harsh threat. Peter's eyes seemed to glance in my direction for a moment. I wasn't sure. Standing on tiptoe, I moved closer to his lips. Originally, I just wanted to scare him. Unexpectedly, the tiptoeing foot suddenly cramped painfully. Unable to stand steadily, I directly pounced on him. Damn it! My first kiss. The warm and soft touch made me flustered and I ran away directly. I completely missed the dark and look in Peter's eyes and didn't think about why I could have such a clear touch. Because of that accidentally lost first kiss, I have been hungry for 3 days. It's not that I haven't thought about finding other clients, but this is a villa area where there aren't many people living. Moreover, those social elite soft and don't come home, seeing children staying up late doing homework. I can't bear to make trouble. Because I have bumped into several indescribable scenes several times before. I also keep a respectful distance from the bedrooms of couples. Thinking about it, Peter is still the most suitable. But he is a nuisance who deliberately pretends not to see me. 3 days. Do you know how I spent these 3 days? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. As I spoke, I became agitated. The little kid opposite shook his head and said honestly, "I don't know. I originally wanted to pour out my grievances but gave up." "Forget it. You're still young. You're not much older than me." Cynthia let out a tch, and looked unconvinced. Cynthia is the only friend I've known since my death. She hadn't even reached 18 when she passed away. She is a road ghost. Her daily work is to tease people and play with children. She doesn't have a bad heart. She's just a bit playful. Perhaps it's because we are both laid back that we naturally became good friends. "I'll help you vent your anger." Cynthia patted her chest and looked confident. That night, Cynthia and I ambushed at the intersection where Peter would return home. The original plan was for Cynthia to come forward and tease Peter a bit. Let him to take a few more turns and let him experience what is called a ghost hitting a wall. Cynthia went full of confidence. 5 minutes later, she returned defeated. My eyes wide and in surprise. My fingers trembled as I pointed at the bribe in her hand. What about venting my anger for me? But this is a lollipop. I haven't eaten one in many years. I continued to condemn. Aren't we the only good friends? But this is strawberry milk flavor. My favorite flavor. Cynthia withstood my almost murderous gaze and her voice gradually grew softer. "Forget it. What's the point of arguing with a little foodie? I still have to take matters into my own hands. I left Cynthia behind and angrily ran into Peter's house. Because I was in a fit of anger and didn't pay attention, I accidentally went off course. As soon as I entered the door, I was blinded by the steamy heat. Vaguely, it seemed as if I saw something I shouldn't have seen. In the next second, I was sent out of the door by a force and fell flat on my face. Ghosts can feel pain too. Okay. Peter. You liar. I shouted with bared teeth and clenched fists. 6, I swear. In my life and after death, I have never had such an embarrassing thing happen. Peter, on the other hand, came out of the bathroom with a calm expression. He even took a bottle of water from the refrigerator, and then slowly sat on the sofa and looked at me. Yes. He looked at me. That annoying look made my teeth itch with anger. But I was still sitting on the ground. My momentum was inexplicably shorter. I suddenly stood up and said with certainty, "You can see me." This time Peter didn't deny it. He uttered an "Menthin," and then raised an eyebrow. "So what? Then why did you pretend not to see me?" "Troublesome," he replied. All my momentum disappeared after hearing these 2 words. A strange sadness welled up in my heart. "Sorry." After a long silence, I heard my own voice say this. "Peter is the only living person who can see me." I don't know what kind of psychology I was in to say such words. It wasn't until someone pointed it out that I realized I had crossed the line. No one has an obligation to help oneself, even if he may be the only one who can help me. I think my emotions are very inexplicable. I frowned in annoyance and wanted to find Cynthia. "Sorry." Another apology sounded in the silent ear. I looked up in surprise. This time it was from Peter. "I had a bad tone just now. Don't take it too hard," Peter explained again. "I've been able to see some unclean things since I was a child. If I responded to every one of them, then I wouldn't be able to live a normal life." He was right. The living and the dead souls shouldn't have too much entanglement. Not to mention, not all souls are kind and friendly. I pursed my lips and nodded in agreement. "If you have nowhere to go, you can stay." Seeing that I had the intention to leave, "This ghost won't accept handouts," I firmly stated. "No need. I have a place to go." But just after taking 2 steps, my legs went weak and I fainted on the ground. Oh no. I'm probably the first ghost in history to faint from hunger. 7, I woke up in the familiar quilt again. I opened my eyes and looked at the time. It was already 8 o'clock. At this point, Peter should have finished his morning exercise and be having breakfast. I felt full of energy and perked up again, thinking that I was forced to work overtime and had a full meal when I fainted. In fact, Peter is a good person, I think. When I went downstairs, the kind person Peter was just finishing the last bite of his sandwich. Seeing me getting up, his eyebrows rose. "Good morning." I am always in a good mood after having a full meal. I trotted up to him, leaned closer, and gave him a big smile as a bonus. "Good morning." Peter coughed lightly, lowered his head and drank soy milk. The tip of his ear turned red again. I looked out the window inexplicably. Today is a cloudy day without the sun. "Peter, don't drink soy milk anymore," I said sincerely. "Why?" I pointed at his ear and said seriously. "Your ear is red. I'm afraid you're having an allergic reaction." The air suddenly fell silent. I think Peter gave me a look. "Not sure. I'll take a closer look." I got closer to Peter and carefully observed his expression. Seriously. Previously, when I saw Cynthia often and teased those people, I enthusiastically followed suit and learned, but was laughed at by her for 3 days. How can there be a ghost? Cynthia said she really couldn't figure it out. I was so angry that I gave her a knock on the head. Peter ignored me and tittied up the plate by himself. Since he took me back home, I stayed. I pushed my luck and pestered Peter. "Are you going to work today? Can I follow you?" "No. You can't. How can someone with a body temperature of more than 30 degrees say such cold words?" It really breaks a ghost's heart. Peter is very busy. But not at work. I don't know what he is tinkering with. I took a look and lost interest. I started staring at the TV. It happened to be a horror movie. I tried to hold back, but still couldn't resist my curiosity. Just when I was engrossed in it, the door clicked open. Scared the ghost to death. I got up from the sofa in a flash and ran towards Peter. Seeing this, Peter was a little helpless. Aren't you a ghost yourself? A ghost scaring a ghost can really scare a ghost. Haven't you heard of it? I pouted and followed Peter even more closely. Without even realizing it myself, I seemed to be relying on him more and more. I followed Peter over. A handsome guy came in from outside the door. He seemed very familiar with Peter. The moment I looked up, that person also looked in this direction. Our eyes met. I felt the blood in my whole body flow backwards. I was stiff on the spot and didn't even know when tears were falling. Leo. The voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing. I murmured. At the moment I saw Leo, many memory fragments seemed to flash through my mind. But I couldn't piece together a complete picture no matter what. He didn't stay at Peter's house for long. I didn't listen to a single word of the conversation between the two. I just stared at Leo in a daze. I couldn't remember anything. But I felt a wave of sadness in my heart. It wasn't until the door was closed again that I slowly withdrew my gaze. I felt a little stuffy in my chest. I took a look at Peter and quietly left. Subconsciously, I didn't want to bring these negative emotions to him. Peter has no obligation to solve these things for me. I am just the only ghost with no origin and no way back. I should abide by my own duty. The moon is bright and the stars are sparse. Cynthia and I were floating and sitting on a cherry tree, looking at the stars in the sky and chatting intermittently. Cynthia, do you know what love is? I sighed and asked. She tilted her head. Vomit in the car. 200? I raised my hand and gave her a knock on the head. Cynthia covered her forehead and shook her leg. I just saw this new joke from them. Although Cynthia was not 18 when she died, she is much more experienced as a ghost than me and can always be at the forefront of gossip. Except for her, I have no one else to turn to for help. I intermittently poured out all the fragments I could remember in my mind and the feeling of seeing Leo. Do you think I liked him before I was alive? I stroked my chin and continued to guess. Unrequited love? A tragic love story? Cynthia leaned against the tree round and said helplessly, "Can we not be so love-struck? Be careful or I'll send you to dig wild vegetables." Why dig wild vegetables? I was a little puzzled. What does this have to do with love? Forget it. I won't explain these trendy memes to you. An old-fashioned person. Cynthia sighed. Haven't you thought that besides lovers, it could also be family or friends? I was silent. When I first became a ghost, I thought it was good not to remember anything. It was like a new life. All the sad and happy memories before life were all erased with the passing of life. After death, I have also seen many scenes of separation and death, without too many feelings. It seems that all my emotions and desires have disappeared along with it. But at the moment Leo appeared, I felt so sad. For the first time, I thought, if only I could remember. Cynthia couldn't stand seeing me looking so worried. She came up with an idea. Then go and ask Peter. Didn't you say they seem to have a good relationship? He should know some inside information. Maybe that scheming dog Peter also knows you. He's just pretending, she said resentfully. I couldn't help laughing when I heard this. Sure enough, still having a childlike temperament and holding a grudge for being deceived by Peter before I'd been able to resist the temptation. However, Cynthia's words really coincide with what I'm thinking. But I was always struggling before. I looked at the villas not far away, identified the one where Peter lives, and my gaze gradually became distant as my thoughts drifted. Peter? Is he really deceiving me? 9 to figure out the things before my death. I still went back to find Peter. Late at night had arrived. I sneaked into Peter's bedroom and was about to start working hard and think about what to do by the way. As a result, The person who usually has a regular schedule was now lying in bed with his eyes open, looking composed. It was obvious that he was waiting for me. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" I pretended as if nothing had happened and greeted him calmly. Peter's thin lips were tightly pursed and his face was a bit gloomy. "Where have you been?" My heart inexplicably skipped a beat and an unfounded sense of guilt welled up. This posture was just like a parent catching a child who came home late. "Nowhere. Just chatting with a friend," I replied in a low voice, and then immediately changed the topic. "I'm hungry." Peter sighed helplessly. His lips moved slightly. But in the end, he didn't say anything and lay down consciously and started to sleep. Facing this silent indulgence, I tried my best to suppress the rising corners of my mouth and pounced on him and started to work. Listening to Peter's powerful heartbeat, I felt extremely at ease. Perhaps because I had something on my mind, I didn't fall asleep. Although ghosts don't need to sleep either, I still maintained the habits of my lifetime after my death. When Peter's breathing gradually became gentle, and he fell into a deep sleep, I immediately sat up. I traced his eyebrows and eyes with my gaze and felt worried. Then I looked down at my own hand and fell silent. This time I can be sure that every time I come into contact with Peter, my soul body won't be so weak. This is different from the feeling when I came into contact with others before. It is obviously getting stronger. According to Cynthia, when she first met me, my soul body was so weak that it was almost dissipating, with a wooden expression on my face and empty eyes. But there seemed to be an invisible thread hanging me all the time, making me unable to disperse freely no matter what. Later, she couldn't bear it, and found me a job of ghost pressing on the bed. Slowly, I became an ordinary little ghost. Thanks to Cynthia's talkativeness and always sticking to me, I also became a lot more cheerful. I put my gaze back on Peter. It seems that I need to keep a distance. It's not good for normal people to be pressed by ghosts all the time, even if Peter exercises every day and is in good health. He can't stand me pressing on him every day. I sighed and was a bit worried. Just keeping a distance is not enough. I have nothing now. Since I want to ask Peter for help, it's impossible to have no expression at all. Plus the help I received before. It seems that I owe a bit too much. How can I repay what I owe you? I murmured. 10 in the next half month. I tried my best to be very well behaved. When Peter went out to work, I watched TV at home, and then secretly looked for everything that might be related to Leo. For example, graduation photos and the like. When chatting on weekdays, I always hinted to him to eat more nourishing food. Although I can't cook with my own hands, there must be verbal expressions. But every time at this time, Peter would glance at me, making my heart skip a beat and gradually fall silent. And then I still dared to say it next time. These days, Peter came home from work even more punctually than before. Every day when he came back, he would clean up early and then lie on the bed. The silent hint was very obvious. But for his health's sake, I could only pretend that I didn't understand anything. Because I was always sticking to Peter before and my performance exceeded the standard. In fact, I don't have to work every day anymore. So every night, on the pretext of chatting with Cynthia, I would go out for a stroll. Or watch Cynthia teasing those people beside her. For several days in a row. Every time Peter wanted to catch me, I would run very fast. Are you kidding? If I were caught by someone, would I still be called a ghost? I think I performed excellently during this period. There was care and thoughtfulness. So I picked a dark and windy auspicious day, and planned to confess to Peter. Before going, I even went to the water ghost barbershop and specially washed my hair. The relationship where a girl washes her hair before meeting should be considered as taking it seriously. As a result, as soon as I stepped through the door, Peter's face appeared in front of me, and I was caught red-handed. I was overjoyed and said with a smile, "Good evening." Peter didn't speak. His face just looked extremely ugly and he coughed from time to time. "Do you have a cold?" I asked with concern. Peter didn't pay any attention to me and turned to get a mask. With a hoarse voice, he asked, "Why haven't you come these days? Have you found someone else?" Someone else. Where is there someone else? There is only one other ghost. I was a bit puzzled. I tilted my head to look at him but could only see his back. As soon as he put on the mask and turned around, he sneezed loudly. Peter, with his face covered, only showed a pair of eyes. My sight naturally focused on his eyes. At just one glance, all the words I wanted to say were suddenly swallowed back and my fingers trembled slightly. This pair of eyes. I recognize them. They are from my memories before my death. 11. The noisy street. The endless abuse and accusations almost drowned me. I stood still expressionlessly, as if I were out of place in this world. What are they arguing about? So annoying. I was pushed and fell to the ground. My eyes inadvertently swept around, and a pair of eyes caught my attention. So beautiful, I commented in my heart. Then, the smell of blood spread. I crouched down, covering my chest, and my soul was trembling. I can't remember any more scenes. At that time, was the hand extended by the owner of those eyes to push me or pull me? There is a 50% chance. I suddenly felt very uncomfortable and had trouble breathing. Why is there this 50% chance? If Peter is really one of those people and contributed a little to my death, even if it's only a little, then what should I do? What do you want me to do? I ran away and hid myself. I hid in a cherry tree and stared blankly at Peter's figure looking for me at night. For a whole week. I didn't show up and always stared at that villa in a daze. Cynthia also hid with me. Are you just going to hide from him like this? She was rarely serious for a few minutes. Since you have doubts, then go find the truth. If it's really him, let's pull him to be our colleague together. Hiding like this now is useless. Mouths are for speaking and explaining, Cynthia persuaded earnestly. I pursed my lips and after a long while, I whispered softly, I'm afraid. Afraid that the truth is unacceptable. Afraid of being betrayed. Afraid that the person who really pushed me into hell is Peter. Peter finally stopped looking for me. While I was relieved, there was also a hint of disappointment. Cynthia, I think I'm sick. Can ghosts get sick too? Cynthia sighed helplessly and poked at my heart. You have love sickness. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something to refute, but couldn't say a word. These days, Peter's figure is all in my heart and mind. It seems a little fortunate. So what if Peter is the one who killed me? After all, it can't overcome the fact that humans and ghosts are from different worlds. When I was sighing and torturing myself and Cynthia, an unexpected person appeared. Leo. He stood under the cherry tree and looked up to meet my eyes. I let out a breath gently and hesitated. You. Can you see me now? He didn't look away and stared at me almost greedily. Then he spread out his palm, and a scarred safety buckle lay obediently in his palm. Yvonne. Come home with brother. Okay? His voice was choked and almost pleading. 12. The word brother is really too long ago for me. So long ago that it can be traced back to when I was a few years old. That safety buckle is like a switch of memory. All the memories that I deliberately forgot rushed into my mind in an instant. Looking at the face that was more composed than in my memory, I stubbornly refused to admit, Leo, you are not my brother. Leo's eyes dimmed a bit. He held the safety buckle tightly, and didn't make a sound. I have no brother. Leo is a child adopted by our family. My dad chose to adopt Leo in order to climb to a higher position and improve his reputation. At that time, I was only a few years old, and didn't understand these twists and turns. I just thought it was great that there was suddenly a brother in the family. Leo is very excellent. Whether it's looks, studies, or hands-on ability, he is very excellent. He is the child of someone else's family in legends. But later there was always me. This little tail. Following him. In short, in my mind when I was a few years old, he was the omnipotent Doraemon. Capable of everything. Unfortunately, Good times didn't last long. My dad gradually lost himself in wine, women, and power. My mom couldn't bear loneliness and started going out frequently. My memory of home was only countless quarrels and the figures of me and Leo in the empty home. I was a premature baby and have been a sickly person since childhood. The couple were estranged. After so many years of quarrels, they had long forgotten that they had a daughter. And their love for me had also been worn away. Nannies were changed one after another because of the chaos at home. It can even be said that I was brought up by Leo. Later, the broken home couldn't hold on any longer and finally fell apart. After my dad took the wrong side. The family was sealed up and my mom divorced quickly. Neither of them wanted me. Let alone Leo, the adopted son. Who wants the child? You gave birth to her. Of course you take her away. I don't have money to raise her now. It seems as if she's not your child. Anyway, I don't want her. What a nuisance. Your mom doesn't want you either. I don't have money to raise you. Here's 10,000 yuan. Take it. Don't look for me anymore in the future. I held a bank card in my hand and didn't shed a single tear. My mind was blank. Too many things happened in a short time. I didn't even have time to react. At this time, Leo was 16 years old. He stood in front of me, rubbed my head and pulled me into his arms. Don't be afraid. I'm still here. Brother wants you. 13 because of that one word, brother. Leo's young shoulders took on the whole family. He not only had to study but also had to do part-time jobs to earn money to support the family. For my expensive monthly medical expenses, Leo was often so tired that he fell asleep while sitting. A 16-year-old teenager should be full of spirit, writing vigorously. Instead of being around me, this sickly person without any blood relationship, not knowing where the next meal will come from. My dad is right. I am just a nuisance. Leo, from now on, you are not my brother. You and I, Yvonne, have nothing to do with each other. Even if it's a rented house. It was rented by Leo. I packed up my things and was about to leave. Leo blocked me and wouldn't let me. Later, I became clever and ran away from home quietly. As a result, Leo went crazy. He skipped classes and searched street by street. He held me tightly, begging me with a choked voice not to leave again and not to make him worry. I cried and scolded him, and hit him. But he didn't dodge. Later, I didn't leave. In those years, I obediently didn't cause any more trouble for Leo and also learned to take care of others. Life was hard but also happy. I could feel that Leo was trying hard to create a sense of home for me. I was very grateful. After Leo went to college, the family's situation became a bit more comfortable. Leo was the top scorer in the college entrance examination. Not only did he receive rewards from the city, but the school also offered scholarships. Coupled with the part-time jobs he did, it was enough to support the expenses of the two of us. However, all the tranquility was broken by a burst of kicking at the door. My dad owed gambling debts, and those people found me and forced me to pay back the money. Since I couldn't give them the money, they trashed our home. Watching the home that Leo and I had decorated bit by bit over the years be destroyed in an instant, I suddenly felt that my whole life had been dragged into darkness. Why is it always me? Am I only capable of bringing trouble to others? I am a disaster star. I shouldn't live in this world. At that time, I always had such thoughts. I knew that my carefully hidden depression had worsened again. 14 In order not to let Leo, who was studying in a neighboring province, worry, I chose to hide the matter of debt collection. Before I could even move, those debt collectors came again. They cursed and threw the things in the house into the corridor and onto the street, searching everywhere for valuable things. And neighbors who didn't know the truth were all watching the excitement. Some people even took pictures and videos to gain exposure on the internet and satisfy their vanity. But no one stood up. My eyes scanned around, looking at the different eyes, feeling somewhat numb. Then my eyes stared firmly at the fruit knife in the corner. That was bought by Leo. Every time he would use this fruit knife to cut beautiful rabbit apples for me just to coax me to take medicine. Now it was casually thrown on the ground. Lonely and somewhat pitiful. When those people couldn't find anything valuable, they turned and set their sights on me. Since you can't come up with the money, use yourself to pay back the debt. Let me end it. As long as I die, everything will end. And Leo won't be dragged down. These people will also be punished accordingly. Seeing that I didn't have any reaction, one of them cursed and shoved me. I fell to the ground. Looking up, I saw a pair of beautiful eyes. The owner of those eyes reached out a hand to me. I smiled brightly, waved him away, and quickly picked up the knife in the corner. Blood spread, and screams continued. 15 I was saved. It was Peter who saved me. However, after lying in the hospital for a month, I couldn't hold on again. I had always loathed myself in my heart. As if I had dragged Leo down again. Originally, life had started to improve. Because of me, it seemed that darkness had once again covered my eyes. There was no way forward and no way back. Peter and Leo are schoolmates. He is 1 year younger than Leo. When Leo was doing part-time jobs to earn medical expenses, it was Peter who was with me. He injected a ray of sunshine into my pale life. He told me jokes in different ways every day or read to me. In order not to let the two of them worry, I wore a smile on my face every day. Leo even wanted to suspend school to take care of me. But I firmly refused. I rubbed the safety buckle in my hand. This safety buckle was a birthday present from Leo. He hoped that I could be safe every year. Over the years, I had never taken it off except when I was in the hospital. Now it is full of scars and dents everywhere. Just like my shortened, incomplete life. Leo, I'm in pain. I want a hug. This was the first time I was Kopafor home was scattered. He was surprised and excited. And even a bit at a loss. Slowly leaning forward, he gave me a hug. I hugged him tightly and said goodbye silently. Later, I deceived everyone's sight and secretly jumped into the river. When I regained consciousness again, I saw Cynthia. Leo had been holding the safety buckle and waiting for me. Go home? Where do I still have a home? I am just a trouble that no one wants. I sobbed uncontrollably. Leo, I don't have a home anymore. 16 Leo's face was full of heartache. He wanted to hug me but passed through my soul. Both he and I were stunned, looking down at my almost transparent soul. I gave a self-deprecating smile. I had a premonition in my heart that I was about to dissipate and truly disappear from this world. At this moment, suddenly a person rushed out of the darkness. Before I could see clearly, he pulled me into his arms. The long-lost, familiar refreshing smell. In countless days and nights in the hospital, a smell that was out of place with disinfectant. A hug that made me feel extremely at ease both in life and after death. You liar. Where else do you want to go? Peter questioned me. Do you have another guy? I cried and shook my head. From beginning to end, I only had him. You promised to be with me. Why didn't you keep your word? He released me and stared at me tightly with an accusing look. I felt extremely guilty under his gaze. Before my death, on the day I decided to jump into the river, I deceived everyone with my image. However, I was caught on the way by Peter. There were no flowers and no specially arranged scenes. Standing in the noisy corridor, Peter asked me if I wanted to be with him. His tone was simple but sincere. As ordinary as having a meal. Yet it made me flustered. But I only thought about getting him away quickly. So I agreed casually. I sent him to buy flowers and confess again. Later, all my past events were completely forgotten by me. But I got entangled with Peter again. I cried for my weakness and incompetence. Ingratitude. I cried for the separation of the living and the dead. And being lovesick. I'm sorry. Peter wiped my tears lovingly and hugged me again. Why are you crying? If you know you're sorry, come back quickly. I looked up in confusion. What? Don't you notice that I can hold you? Peter paused. You're not dead. You just have a separated soul. 17 It turned out that on that day, when Peter was on his way and found something wrong, he came back to find me in time, so I was saved by him again. However, due to prolonged lack of oxygen, the brain nerves and brain cells were permanently damaged, and I was in a state of continuous coma. That is, a vegetative state. Then why is it only you, who can touch me? Peter rubbed my hair. Because of my constitution. I can see those things since I was a child. I worshipped a master. Now I'm half a sorcerer. Naturally. We have our own methods. I nodded and didn't want to pursue the details. Then why did you pretend not to know me at first? I continued to ask. You don't remember me. Peter's voice was full of sadness. If I rashly reveal my identity, you will run farther away. I bit my lip and lowered my head, feeling a little guilty. After such a long time together. He knows me very well. Peter is afraid. Afraid that I don't have the will to survive. Afraid that I will lie in the hospital bed forever and never wake up. So the reason why I couldn't wake up as a vegetative state in the sanatorium for so long is that I resisted from the bottom of my heart and didn't want to live anymore. But Peter and Leo are doing their best to keep me with their own ways. Cynthia once said that there seemed to be an invisible thread hanging me, so that I couldn't dissipate. I think it's probably because of them. Little liar. Come back. Peter hooked my little finger with his little finger and pleaded in a low voice. My heart's softened completely. After this experience, I realized how wrong I was. The liberation and redemption I thought, on the contrary, plunged the people who love me into greater grief. I hooked his finger and shook it, responding to him. Okay. Peter let out a long breath, and slowly approached me. I closed my eyes and waited for the kiss to come. Huff. Ahem. Leo coughed lightly, looking very unhappy. It was all because I was too immersed in emotions just now that I forgot that there were Leo and Cynthia watching the show with a face full of interest beside me. My face flushed red in an instant, having been interrupted in the kiss. Cynthia was puffing up in disappointment and shouting what a pity. I turned to look at her. Clearly, there were many things I wanted to say, but I was silent for a long time. Cynthia smiled and showed her sweet dimples. Don't make such a face. Since there is hope of living, you mustn't give up. Hearing this sentence, I couldn't hold back anymore and tears fell. Only she and I know how heavy this sentence is. 18 I only heard Cynthia talk about my life before once. She grew up with her neighbor's brother Anson as childhood sweethearts. In all her memories of youth, she only had Anson. In the innocent teenage years, they made the most sincere promise and kissed under the cherry tree. Later, Anson moved away and Cynthia began endless longing. The two secretly agreed to take the same university entrance exam and worked hard for the same goal. But God always loves to play jokes. Cynthia, who was already in senior 3, suddenly got a serious illness. Her body deteriorated rapidly, and she had less than 3 months left to live. In the last 3 months, every day she thought it would be great if she could live a longer. At least until she took the college entrance exam. Their family has always favored sons over daughters. Cynthia heard her parents nagging about her spending money every day. And her younger brother complained that he hadn't bought new clothes for a long time. She endured all these cold stares and rolled eyes and put all her energy into studying. No matter how much pain she was in, Cynthia never gave up studying. Finally, with her persistence, she took the college entrance exam. Her grades were very good. Even in the environment of being seriously ill and in unbearable pain, she was admitted to the school agreed with Anson. But she had no time left and was destined not to wait for the admission letter. I clearly remember that after Cynthia finished telling me, she said with tears, if only I could be alive. Some people despise life, while some people try every means just to live one more day. I hugged her again. Is there anything I can do? Cynthia tapped my forehead. No need. Just burn more money for me to use later. I looked at her fixedly and didn't speak. Cynthia looked defeated by me. She sighed. Don't look at me with such eyes. I will always soften every time. I admit that I was insincere just now. If you can see Anson, tell him that I didn't break my promise. And sorry. 19 I looked at myself lying on the bed in the sanatorium. Although my face was a little pale, my condition was not too bad. It seems that Peter and them have taken good care of me. What if I go in and can't wake up? Peter said. Don't worry. I'm here. As long as you always think that I'm waiting for you, it will be fine. His tone was very calm. But I saw his slightly trembling hand. He was not sure about this matter. Peter was afraid. I turned to look at Leo again. There were dark circles under his face, showing his exhaustion. Brother, I'm sorry. This was the apology I owed Leo. But it was too long overdue. Leo reached out to hug me, but only halfway through extending his arm. He remembered that I was still in a soul state, and withdrew it. It's okay. Brother is waiting for you. He tried his best to make himself seem less nervous. I smiled slightly and turned around to walk towards myself. Later, I couldn't remember clearly what happened. I only remembered walking in the darkness for a long time and couldn't find a way out. Until I heard someone desperately calling me. Then light appeared at the end. I trotted towards those two voices. When I woke up, the two big men by the hospital bed had red eyes. Only then did I know that a year had passed since I entered. During this year, I couldn't imagine what kind of mood they were in waiting for me to wake up. I originally thought that I could open my eyes and talk to them soon. But it was gone forever. Little liar. Don't scare us next time. Peter was angry and distressed. In the end, he couldn't deal with me and had to pinch my cheek and give up. When you get better, I'll deal with you. He put down a harsh remark angrily. I curved the corners of my mouth. Okay. After another half a month, I was finally discharged from the hospital. It turned out that Peter's villa was so close to the sanatorium. In March of spring, feeling the sunlight shining on me again, there was a warm feeling. So this is the feeling of being alive. At this moment, I once again experienced Cynthia's longing for being alive. I want to go under the cherry blossom tree, I said to Peter. Peter put a shawl on me and wrapped me up tightly before holding me and walking slowly. Without Peter's help, I could feel Cynthia's presence. But now I couldn't see her anymore. Sorry. I'm late. After waking up, the first thing I did was ask Peter and them to find Anson. Unexpectedly, Peter and them had already done this for me. After making inquiries in many ways, they had already contacted him. They also helped pass on the message. Is he Anson? I pointed to the person not far away and asked. Peter nodded. He comes here once a year. I asked him. He said there is someone he likes here. I almost thought he could see Cynthia like me. I looked over from afar and understood. That cherry blossom tree was the place where they once fell in love. As the breeze blew, Anson disappeared in the pink cherry blossom snow all over the sky. I withdrew from Peter's embrace, took 2 steps outward, and turned to look at him. Peter, to love others, love yourself first. In the past, I didn't even love myself and even gave up my life easily. Now that I have been reborn once, there are still many imperfections. But I have learned to accept myself. I want to ask. Are you still willing to accept an imperfect me? I nervously awaited Peter's judgment, and returned the choice to him. Peter pulled me into his arms all at once, as if he wanted to blend me into his bones and blood. How can you steal my lines? Yvonne, shall we get married? No refusal allowed. I laughed at his rascal ity, and then gave him an answer with a passionate kiss.